One thing Australians need to keep in mind when they move to India is having a lot of patience. I think probably they should do some course on how to increase the level of patience, because everything takes a lot more time, particularly the public transport or not the public, the roads, the infrastructure. It's nowhere compared to what you'll have, you're used to in Australia. So that patience being one. Second, the work culture is also a little different. It's not right or wrong, but it's just different because, for example, Indians a lot more, they get a lot more personally involved in each other. For example, it's very common for work colleagues to visit each other's houses as well. I mean, get their wives. Their wives could be meeting, and they could be meeting over weekends, which is kind of, I've not seen that much in Australia. I think Australians keep a very clear distinction, between the work life and the outside work life. So that gap is a lot more narrow in India. So I think one, patience, and second, you need to keep this in mind that it's okay for you to go out and meet people and talk to your colleagues and share a bit of personal rapport as well, rather than just keeping it to work. One big challenge for anybody who's going, probably anybody like me or anybody who's an expat in Mumbai, is the infrastructure. It just takes you, for example, a lot of time to travel from place A to place B, and that starts affecting your work life, your work-life balance. It's difficult to move from place A to place B. For example, I would do so many things when I was in Melbourne, but my kind of social life on weekdays are completely restricted. Generally, it's difficult to move anywhere on a weekday. I think one thing which helped working in India and helped working in Australia was acknowledging that people could be different. The approach to things could be different. It's not right or wrong, it's just different. And somebody like me who has lived in India most part of my life and worked in Australia and learned the culture in Australia, the Western culture, for me, I don't face that sort of cultural problems when communicating with people. I think to some extent, I personally feel that the culture in itself is the difference gets exaggerated at times. You just need to be nice to people. You just need to be sensitive to people. If you're nice and sensitive, I think your 90% of your cultural problem are taken care of. I did the Leaders program in 2009, and to me it was a very, very enriching experience. I think the commitment AsiaLink shows to, in terms of organizing the event, etc., lining up the speakers is fabulous. So it's a 1-year part-time program, but the kind of involvement you have is intense. I mean, those 4 days or 5 days you spend in Canberra is intense. Then the other days, I think 1 day each month is also intense. So in terms of, for my learning, I think it opened a new dimension in my head in terms of cultural intelligence. And I myself moved from India, so it was not very long. I moved to Australia in 2008, and I worked in a completely Indian setting to a setting where I was the only Indian out of 800 people at Freehills. And law firms tend to be very very rigid in their work environment. It's not like IT. It's not like most. It's very, very rigid. Australia has got I think serious about the relationship only in the last probably couple of years or so. Maybe I won't even say 5 years. I think when I arrived in 2008, I didn't see a lot of interest in Australia about India. There were things happening, but it was more ad hoc. I think the energy was more ad hoc. The efforts were more ad hoc. When I joined AsiaLink in 2009, I think AsiaLink one itself, I think, helped a lot in terms of getting into the head of policymakers, senior government officials, that Asia one is important. Two, China obviously is very important, but it's also the other parts of Asia, including India. But in the last couple of years, I've actually seen the level of interest in Australia rising about India. And if you see the number of visits by the senior government officials, including the Prime Minister, the Australian Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, I think there were a number of visits which have been conducted in the last one year or so to India. So there has been a renewed interest, and people are making that effort. But I don't see that sort of effort, Indians making about Australia, and I think that's a gap we need to fill. And I guess Australia-India Youth Dialogue is a good initiative, because you're not just training Australians to engage with India, but you're also training Indians to engage with Australia, and I think that's a very good balancing factor.